This is our league, and this is your league. Broadcasting from the 55-yard line in Japan to the shores of the Great White North and everywhere around the world on Gridiron America Radio and the Sports History Network.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to From the 55-Yard Line. And it is just myself with legendary Upton Bell sitting here. I'm in Japan, and Upton is freezing his butt off up there in Boston. And it is Upton and I for a nice hour or so chat here to talk about all things football. And anybody who is listening to this podcast for the first time, if you don't know who Upton Bell is, well, the links are there. Upton is a living legend in the NFL, son of former Commissioner Bert Bell, former general manager of the New England Patriots, and former owner of former owner of one of the franchises in the World Football League, and a man who has interviewed. How many presidents have you interviewed, Upton?
One for a long time, and the other ones I met, including Harry Truman.
Yeah. And Upton, and that's you it's when I talk to people about you, you and I are friends. I mean, this is not the first time you and I have talked. You and I have talked many, many times. Heck, I was sitting in a bar in Chicago and you called me up out of the blue just to check on how things were going with our move. And when I was in Boston, obviously with COVID and everything, we couldn't see each other, but you called me every day, gave me, my wife and I, some great restaurant recommendations. So I've been looking forward to sitting down here talking with you for a long time. So thank you very much.
I'm great at restaurants. I'm great at travel. I'm great at everything but sports.
But you have spent a life around sports, and that's, your book, President the Creation, is one of my favorites. And you've seen it all. When I talk, and the first subject that I want to talk to you about is Lombardi. I just finished up the book, when Pride Still Mattered, and it was curious as I was reading the book. Very little mention was given to your father, and I just wanted to give you the floor and tell everybody more about Lombardi, your dad, you. The floor is yours.
Well, first and foremost, I do know the author, David Moranis, who I like very much, and actually is in my other collection, of the Upton Bell collection, which is all the authors I've interviewed over 50 years. And I like David, and it's ironic because when the book first came out, I interviewed him and told him on the air, I said, David, you probably were not, and he's a terrific researcher. He's not somebody that just goes out there and throws crap together. I said, but the thing that is wrong in your book is that that the Maras were the ones that sent Vince Lombardi to Green Bay. It wasn't. Bert Bell, my father, who was the commissioner at the time, said Green Bay is in really deep trouble. They need a stadium, which he finally got for them through borrowing money from CBS to finance a new stadium. And then he said, we have to do something, or Cleveland, or Green Bay is out of it. So he said, I need for you to send Vince Lombardi there. He's a disciplinarian. He's a great assistant coach with the Giants. And that's how Lombardi ended up in Green Bay. And Moranis said to me, as honest as he could be, he said, you know what, Upton? He said, you're one of the few people I did not interview. He said, if I had, I would have known that. Now, the other thing is that HBO, that also did the life of Lombardi, they got it wrong too. And I think the producer of it was David Bernstein. I don't know whether he's still there. Probably is now. And I told him the same thing. History is written, they say, by the victors, but sometimes even the victors get it wrong. So a lot of times they do. So that is the true story of how Bert Bell twice saved Green Bay. The first time, and actually you can go on and see a video, I think it's in my collection, that he actually called Hexram, who had left the Rams and went to CBS. He said, listen, I've got a problem. Can I borrow $100,000? We need money. This is back in the 50s.
Right.
He said, well, Green Bay could go under. And he said, Heck said, I'm not going to lend it to you, Bert. I'll give it to you. And so he gave the money to Green Bay. And then finally we had the dedication. And it's really funny. At the dedication, Tricky Dick Nixon showed up, the vice president. And there's a thing of my father giving a speech at Green Bay at the dedication of the stadium. And Nixon was there for it. So Green Bay can thank, I mean, you're not going to hear it today because the only thing the networks do now is self-congratulations. And so the Green Bay Packers can thank Bert Bell for saving them twice.
And your dad's relationship with Lombardi, what was that like?
Well, he knew everybody. I mean, he didn't know Lombardi intimately. He knew of him. But remember, I tell people, they forget Bert Bell founded the Eagles, was 50% owner of the Steelers, but he also was a quarterback and a coach. And that's what I think gave him, unlike any commissioner in any sport, the insight and how to look into the future, because he knew what it was like to get knocked on your ass. He knew what it was like to throw a forward pass, and he also knew what it was like to continually lose as an owner and a coach because they didn't have enough money to do it. And out of that came Bert Bell founding the draft, or the NFL again would have gone under. There were 22 teams since the founding of the NFL. And I'm sorry, 27 teams that went out of business. And
yeah, that's something people don't realize, that, for the longest, when the NFL first started out, it was a year-to-year proposition for the league.
It was going out of business until he went to the owners and he said, listen, I'm the weakest link in the chain, and I'm recommending that we have a draft, and when the inverse order, the more you lose, the higher your choice is. And he finally pushed it through in 1935, and the first draft was in 1936. They didn't have that. It was the Bears, the New York Giants, the Washington Redskins, and the, believe it or not, Packers. I mean, people talk about Lombardi. I'm jumping all over the place. But Curly Lambeau was the genius of the Packers, kept them alive, was in, I think, the first or second Hall of Fame ballot. Lambeau Field's named after him. Curly Lambeau was a brilliant coach and a wild man, an absolute wild man. In fact, Northup from Chicago called me about a month ago because he's doing the life of Curly Lambeau, and we talked for hours about Lambeau and his influence as a coach of the Packers. He also had a wild life. I think he was married to 3 or 4 different women. He had a life that they should make a movie about. I mean, they make a movie about everybody, but this guy was unbelievable. Forget Lombardi. Lombardi certainly was a great coach, but Curly Lambeau was incredible player, coach, drafter, everything, and he kept them alive. So again, as I said, I'm jumping around, but Bert Bell knew Bert Bell, I know commissioners don't do it anymore, and that's not a knock on them. Bert Bell could walk in a locker room. Every player knew him. Every player knew that he wouldn't bullshit them. Every player knew that unlike today, that he would take the part of the players over the owners if he thought they were right. And look at all the other things he did. Television, the draft, ex-FBI agents in cities around the league. He kept the league going by merging the Eagles and the Steelers, and then later the Cardinals and the Steelers during the Second World War, and told the owners if they closed the league down, they would never open it again. And he was right, because along came the All America Conference, and one of the teams in it was the Chicago Dons. So, there was the LA Dons, but Chicago had a team.
Yeah, the Rockets.
The Rockets. But wherever you look in the NFL, you will see Bert Bell's fingerprints.
Well,
But
I'm glad.
he
I'm
knew.
glad. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I said he knew. You know, a lot of people don't know. I put it out on social media a while ago. I'm watching the Rose Bowl, the Michigan-Alabama game, is that Bert Bell threw the first pass in Rose Bowl history.
I didn't know
It was
that.
It was one of the few Ivy League teams, 10 in 1916, 1917, played in the Rose Bowl against Oregon. They lost. I think it was 14-0. And I was trying to get, because I think actually NBC has the video of it. Bert Bell threw the first forward pass in it. And when the Ivy League was a power, he led 10 to the Rose Bowl. Never happened again.
Wow. Oh, I knew you led him to Rose Bowl, but I didn't, until I didn't know your dad threw the first pass in Rose Bowl history. Wow.
Well, not only that, he coached then later on with John Heisman for the Heisman Trophy. His extended experience before he even became commissioner prepared him to be the most far-seeing, whether I'm his son or not, most far-seeing commissioner. And back-to-back, I told NBC News about 7 or 8 years ago when they were doing something on the NFL. They wouldn't use it, and I know why. I said the greatest combination of back-to-back commissioners in sports history was Bert Bell, followed by Pete Rozelle.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I knew that I didn't give a shit. That I knew they wouldn't use it because they're not going to put it on there when Goodell was commissioner and in charge of the TV. But I got it in anyway. I could care less. But when you think about all that and you see his vision, a lot of people probably don't know, maybe you do, Greg, but the first televised game in history was Bert Bell's Philadelphia Eagles in 1936 to 37. Bert Bell's Eagles against the Brooklyn
Dodgers.
Yes, there was a football team, and the World's Fair had come to New York, and NBC wanted to experiment with a football game to show it at the World's Fair, and that's what they did. And the great thing about it is that he realized that day that television was the answer, that the NFL was the most televisable of all games, and that's why, even though they say that Pete Rozelle was the guy that really bought TV, Bert Bell was really the father of modern television. With the first national television contract that he signed in the 50s with the Dumont Network, way before the ABC Monday Night Football that started in 1970. So there's history everywhere, and he made it all. But he also understood the game was the players. Now the game is not the players.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree with you.
The game is now is how many games can we play? How many TV contracts can we get? How much money can we make? And that's fine. I understand all of that. But there are 17 games now. Half the league is hurt. All but a few quarterbacks are not playing. They play on Sunday. They play on Monday. They play on Thursday. At the end of the season on Saturday. The body cannot take that type of beating.
Right.
And it's funny, I go all the way back into the middle 60s having conversations with our players at the Colts. So I said to them one day, you play on Sunday, how long does it take the body to recover? And all the players said the same thing. Usually by Saturday, you might feel better. Might feel better. So now these guys have to play on a Sunday. Then they have to play on a Thursday. They're playing, instead of 16 games, they're playing 17. And I'll tell you what, pretty soon it's going to be 18. And that's where it's headed. But your major product, your players, are now just guys that are out there.
And with the player, I mean, obviously the conditioning of the players today is so much different than from what it was even back in the 60s. But let's go back to the 60s. For people who don't know,
let me just interject here.
Yeah.
Here's also the problem. So your players are approaching, your offensive defensive linemen are approaching 400 pounds.
Yeah.
Your players are just so big that the collisions are horrific. I mean, I have 3 sets here, and so I get all the games. And I have one set that's 75 inches. I can see the whole field. I can see the collisions. And I'll tell you, sometimes I even have to turn my head, and I'm used to, the game, and I'm used to the violence of it. But that's the other problem, that the players are so big and so well conditioned and so good, they get a flying start. And, look at what's going on the sideline. I mean, you have the medical tent. Jesus, every minute there's somebody in the medical tent.
And when it comes to the players of today versus the players back then, so one of the, a lot of people forget that you were, we were part of the Colts for how many years?
10.
10. So you started with the Colts in what year was it? I can't remember. It's in your book, obviously.
1960 to 70, 71.
Yeah, yeah.
And
so during that, go ahead, Upton. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to overtalk you.
I said the players then were big, but now they're 3 times the size. And one of the other interesting things, because I can make all sorts of comparisons, is one of my reasons for saying, and people agree with me that know the game, is that players worked themselves into shape. They came into training camp. There were 6 preseason games, but the players didn't play in all of them. And by the time it started the season, they were all in good shape. Now you have 2 or 3 pre-training camps. Then you have training camp. And then the Players Association made a deal which has come back to haunt them, that they wanted less practices, less padded practices, less scrimmaging in camp, less during the season. And as a result, they're getting more damn injuries. And now they recognize it, but they've already, agreed to it. So you wonder why there's so many injuries. You wonder why there's so many bad games. I mean, I'm talking about real mediocrity. And the reason is that these guys are only getting shape because they're not used to hitting by mid-season.
And, back in the 60s, everybody, it was, how long training camp was? What, 2 months back in the 60s?
It's about, we went in July and broke like just before the first week in September, something like that. Well, that's the other thing. You went away, and players knew how to bond.
Yeah.
There was something about it. And again, I want to be very clear to your audience. I don't think just because it's today that it was better when I was with the Colts, let's say, and then later with the Patriots. The game, the players, everything is eminently better today. But what is missing is the immediacy of the problems. And it's almost like they become too refined to the point now where players are brittle. Even though they're bigger, they're quicker, they're faster, they're stronger, they're everything. Then you played 14 games and then eventually 16 games, which was finally changed. Players did play themselves into shape. Players did get hurt. The other difference is now you can't touch the quarterback. You can't touch the receiver. You blow on the quarterback. That's it. Then forget it. I mean, the quarterback was fair game on every play. But you know what's ironic? There were less injuries. The game was much more brutal then. The hitting was really something. But you didn't have the injuries you have now.
Right.
You can be too finely tuned. You can have a situation of where these guys are flying around. The other thing is nobody tackles anymore. They're human spears. So now they've had to refine things. There's no longer a kickoff, rarely a punt return. And the reason is that now the rules committee, and they realize that they've come so far and the players are so good and running at such high speeds that the injuries on a kickoff are, a lot of head injuries and things like that. But what do you get on the other hand? You're taking a play out of the game. I'll be dead a long time, but it will come back. You will have flag football someday. The game is being played on the outside now anyway. It's an outside game.
Right.
And if you don't have a good receiver and a guy can throw, forget it. But they're getting, what's the Pro Bowl now? The Pro Bowl is now flag football.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let me ask you,
So,
when it comes to the rules today, I mean, you knew Johnny Unitas. You saw,
no.
how would Johnny Unitas have played? What would his stats have been like compared to, say, Tom Brady if he would have been, if he would have been able to play, in the 2000s? Do you think his stats would have been better?
Oh, yeah, because Unitas was always under deep pressure, even though we had a good offensive line. He didn't give a shit. I said that I was asked who were the two greatest quarterbacks I've ever seen. I said Tom Brady and John Unitas because of the way they could pick things apart, the way they stood in the pocket at the last minute, their intellectual understanding of a game that really is quite complex, and even more so today, is that they just knew. There are some people, whether they're performers, movie stars, the Einsteins, the great, the great people that see way ahead of things. These two guys were like these two great scientists that didn't have, neither one of them had really great ability as far as athleticism is concerned. Neither one of them were runners. Neither one of them could do what you see quarterbacks do today. You've got to draft a quarterback today that has to be able to run, has to be able to move in the pocket. Look at the quarterback at Buffalo. Allen. He's incredible. He's 6'5". He's at almost 250. He's part of their running attack. Josh Allen is like this super athlete playing quarterback. Neither one of those guys were that. But what they were human computers. They knew right away. And of course now every play is called by an offensive coordinator. Every play is called defensively by a defensive coordinator. I said, for Christ's sake, when you have a genius like a Brady or Unitas, you don't need anybody to call anything. They are the people that are on the field that see the game better than anybody. But that's what you have now. So there are better athletes. I mean, people like John Elway, people like Dan Marino, great throwers, great athletes. Joe Montana. I could name a whole bunch, going all the way back to Sammy Ball.
Yeah.
That were better athletes. But these guys were, it was like watching Einstein, with the theory, discovering the theory of relativity. These people were human scientists.
And with that, there was the other part with the Colts with Don Shula. Now, obviously, anybody who knows football history knows that from what I've read, and I'm going to ask you, the relationship between Shula and Unitas wasn't the greatest. But when it came to Unitas called its own plays. So what was the input on Shula with Shula on the sidelines during a game?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, people forget the most underrated coach of all time was Weeb Eubank, who was before Don Shula.
Oh, yeah.
And Weeb won the two biggest games in early NFL history. He won back-to-back world championships, but he won with the Colts in the first sudden death game, which again, Bert Bell invented sudden death. And then he came back and upset us while being, like 17 points. The Colts were almost 17-point favorites. And he came back and upset us with Joe Namath and a great defense. He was really something. He's on my list of the 10 greatest coaches of all time. People have a tendency to forget him. But when Shula got there, he was the one that set up all the great defenses in Detroit when they had those teams, those great teams in the 50s under Buddy Parker. When he got there, the problem was they were both young. Shula was I think he had just turned 33, 34. And when you're young, you think you know it all. And there were clashes. And this one particular day, I was on the field. It was, I think, pardon me, either the year that we end up losing the Browns, 1964, or 65, when we lost to Green Bay and sudden death. And Shula set a play in, which was rare. Unitas was so well prepared, you wouldn't need to send a play. And I think today he tells Josh McDaniels or one of these geniuses, he told them to go screw themselves. But Shula set in a play. Giants ran the play, and what happened was it ended up being an interception. And when he came running back to the bench, which you wouldn't see with these guys today, he said, if you're going to call a play, get it fucking right. He ran to the bench. I thought, oh my God, are we going to end up in a fist fight here? But Shula said nothing, and that was the last play sent in.
And with those 60s Colts, you were down there for Super Bowl III. I always hear people talk about the New York Jets side of things, but when it comes to the Colts, obviously, I can't even imagine how big of a loss that was for the franchise. I mean, just what was it like after the loss?
Well, it was I could the week leading up to the game, I think I told Shula, I said, I think I had a sense that our players thought that this was going to be, an easy. It was going to be an easy game if they played their game, and it probably would have been. It would have been competitive, but I think I felt that the players were taking the Jets lightly. I think I said something to Shula, but what happened was basically in that game, because I was sitting with the coaches upstairs in the press box, and you could see, first and foremost, Jimmy Orr on the bus had said to Earl Morrow, because I was on the bus, says, he didn't say it to Morrow, he said it to somebody else. He said, Senor, I hope Earl doesn't wake up today. And he was so prophetic with what he said, because Earl did wake up. He wasn't the same player that when Unitas got hurt that led us, into the Super Bowl and a huge 34-0 win over Cleveland. And he did wake up, and he missed it. One of the key plays was handoff to Tom Matty. You threw it back to Earl, and Earl had Jimmy Orr wide open in the end zone, and ended up throwing to Jerry Hill, and that was it. That it gave the Jets impetus that they could hold us, and the irony was that Shula was going to give Earl the first half, and then give him a few plays in the second half. Now, Unitas claims that Shula told him that I'm going to start you in the second half. I don't know which one was true because I wasn't there on the field or in the locker room. But the Jets won. I think it was 0-0 at halftime, and the Jets were up 3-0. But I knew when we were in the locker room, even though Unitas' arm had been injured and still recovering, I thought if you put Unitas in there, even if he can't throw the ball that well, they need something. And of course, it ended up, the Jets were smart. They ran the clock down. Matt Snell had a great day. They kicked all those field goals, and they end up beating us 16-7. After the game, it was one of the few times, if ever, I saw an owner walk into the locker room after the game and tell the team he was embarrassed, and he would never let that happen again. I mean, it was, I didn't see the whole speech that he gave to the team. It's unusual for an owner to do that. But then afterwards, I was in the shower room speaking to Alex Hawkins, one of our players, and Mike Curtis, who I had drafted, they called him Mad Dog, thought we were laughing. We were laughing about how stupid it was we lost the game, and Curtis mistook it and threatened to kill Hawkins in the locker room. So it wasn't good. And also on the way down the stands, I was talking to Dan Rooney, and he was talking about how embarrassing it had to be for the NFL to lose, because the Packers had won the first two Super Bowls and won against the Raiders, the last one, by a wide margin. And there's still belief that the NFL was much better than the AFL. So it was a real shock. And then that night, Rick Volk, one of the other players I had drafted and one of our best defensive backs, had been kicked in the head on one of the kickoffs and stayed in the game. Those days there were no tents, there was nothing, He played, and he almost died that night at the hotel. In fact, if the doctor hadn't come in and pulled his tongue out, he would have died. Right? They put him in the bathtub and iced him up. I mean, it was just, the whole thing was bad. It was shocking. But here is what happens by one act of losing that game. In the next 3 years, Don Shula was gone next year. I was gone 2 years later. Harry Humes, the general manager, was gone. And practically everybody who was there was gone within 3 years. If we had won, I might never have left Baltimore. Because I was a kid. I mean, by a kid, I was really mature, but I was only like 27, 28 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, guys today don't even get jobs like that. But I had so much success, and I'm not bragging. I'm just saying I had so much success. I said, why do I want to be a general manager right now? You know, I'm still so young. You know, then general managers didn't get jobs till they were in their 50s.
Yeah.
And I was happy in Baltimore. I liked Shula. I liked everything about it. Loved the town. And there were all of us. George Young, who went on and was my assistant and now is in the Hall of Fame, he got fired. Everybody either got fired or left. And I say that was the game that changed all of our lives forever.
And then you went to New England. Well, back then they were called the Boston Patriots.
Yeah, I got the coaches, I got the owners to rename them the New England Patriots because we were moving to Foxborough out in the middle of nowhere, and I told them we needed to draw from the 4 or 5 New England states. And I finally convinced them, and I said, you can't call them the Bay State Patriots. I said, because the newspapers, then, they were newspapers, were writing the BS Patriots. I said, you want people to say it's the bullshit Patriots? Ridiculous. So I have to take credit for that. I am the father of that name.
Every time, it's funny. Every time I see, I'll go through just catching up with my football history. I'll see every now and then I'll see that reference and I just smile. I go, that was Upton's idea to name the New England Patriots. I think I even told my wife that one time and she was like, oh, that's nice. My wife, Norco doesn't, really, she's not into football like I am. But yeah, no, every time I see, and let me ask you this too, and this is just completely off topic. Why didn't and obviously this happened long after you were gone, but why didn't the Patriots stick with the old school Pat Patriot that I grew up knowing and loving? From,
well, it's like everything today. I mean, the old is no good and the new is good.
Yeah.
And when NFL properties, I mean, all these things are huge now. All the accessories to actually the game itself is new. It's out with the old uniforms, out with the old helmets. Let's have the flying Elvises. And that's fine, but you've got to keep some tradition.
Yeah.
But listen, I'm not lamenting it because I don't really care. But those days are gone, and I'm just lucky enough that I saw it from almost the beginning. I'm lucky. I look at it this way. I love watching the games. I do a lot of reports on them. I probably get 3 to 4 calls each week from historians from everywhere that want to know what it was like, because when I'm gone, there's nobody left that knows what it was like.
And that's why I like spending time with you just talking, because you were there, like your book says, you were there, from the beginning. And just to kind of circle it all back to the beginning here, because there's one aspect of your father as commissioner that I wanted to touch upon before we ended our recording today, and that's the All-American Football Conference and the NFL's response to it, because your dad was commissioner during that time period.
Well, first and foremost, he's the one that said, because he got word. Now, remember, in those days,
Yeah.
you're a Chicago guy.
Yeah.
The biggest game in football was the Chicago All-Star game when an Arch Ward, who was the sports editor of the Chicago Tribune and one of the real powers in America, Arch Ward helped found that All-America Conference.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, during the war, my father got word in like 1945 that a new league was coming in. And even though he had to deal with Arch Ward, he knew that Ward was really didn't give a shit about the NFL and wanted a new league, and he was the power behind it. And so when the league was going to close down, back to my opening statement to you, when the league was going to close down, my father went to the owners and only got it passed by like 1 or 2 votes and said, as I said in the beginning, if we close down, we'll never open up again. And there's also, he didn't say it publicly because he wanted to be careful. He also said, that there's a new league coming up. He had gotten worried about it. And so what happened was that league, if they had had more money, like Lamar Hunt and the AFL,
Mm-hmm.
they might have made it, because I can tell you this. Now, I was still a kid to a degree, but I was a kid that I never thought I was a kid. I always thought I was an adult, because that's the way I was brought up. It was great. I knew what was going on. I thought the All-America Conference, Paul Brown, some of the other teams, I thought they were better than the NFL. I thought their players were better than the NFL. I was never surprised when the Cleveland Browns came into the league in 1950, and I saw the opening game, and they got into their training camp. And I told my father privately, I said, I think the Browns are going to beat the hell out of the Eagles. And he said, don't say a word, Upton. I don't want you. I mean, I was 10 years old. No, by then I was 13. Said, writers are going to ask you what you think, because I knew that my father always took us all to training camps. And I said, after watching Paul Brown and seeing Larry and Motley and Lou the Toe Groza and all the great receivers, I said, no question in my mind, they'll beat the Eagles, who had won, back-to-back world championships. So the thing that Bert Bell saw was that the All-America Conference was a real threat, even though they had financial problems. And that he began to negotiate. The commissioner of that league was Admiral Jonas Ingram. And I can remember one of the meetings in Chicago at the, and I don't know if it's still there or not. I can always remember Chicago by going to the Sheraton Blackstone. Is it still there?
Yeah, it's still there, but I don't know what it's called now.
Who knows? But it was the spot. And going to a dinner with Admiral Ingram and his wife and myself and my brother. And I might be wrong on this one, because I remember everything. I think he was still wearing his Admiral suit. Might be, might not be, but it makes a great story anyway.
It does. And you know what? Those navy dress blues, that's a classic look anyway. So.
Oh yeah, not only that, he had all his medals on and
Yeah.
everything. I could have been wrong on that, but I prefer to tell that story because it's a better story. But anyway, he eventually, he affected that merger, which I think saved the NFL, because it was a bitter struggle. And clearly the Browns were better than any team in the NFL. And of course, proved it the first 4 or 5 years. That's why in my book, everybody is talking about who's the greatest coach of all time. Is it Belichick, who's about to be fired? Is it Don Shula? Is it Lombardi? Is it Chuck Noll? And I said, the greatest coach in history who changed the game, who brought so many things into it, was Paul Brown. No question in my mind, even today. He was so far ahead of his time. The IQ test, 40-yard dashes, coaches working full time, film study, you name it. And that was Paul Brown.
Yeah.
So he's the top of my list, and I have Shula, even though he didn't win as many Super Bowls. I have Shula and Belichick next. Although I've redone the list now, not in the book, and I've actually put closer at the top of there with Bill Walsh, Vince Lombardi, and Chuck Noll. I have them either right there or ahead of those two. I know it's heresy somewhat around here, but I don't think Belichick was the greatest coach of all time. And of course, today, the know-nothings who haven't been around to compare to these guys. I mean, there are people like in their 30s around here locally or some of the national media saying, Belichick's the greatest coach of all time. And then when I asked them, I said, well, did you see these other coaches? Oh, no, I wasn't born then. I said, let me give you an example. I can't say Red Grange was one of the greatest players of all time. I say, because I never saw him. I wasn't born then. I saw him on film, and I liked him and thought he belonged in the Hall of Fame. But I can't say he was the greatest. And I said, you can't say somebody is the greatest if you haven't seen them. And that's what I find a problem today. Everybody's got this great and that great. I think the other big argument is this, unfair or not. Belichick coach at Cleveland, been here for 23 years. He's won nothing since Brady has gone.
Yeah.
Nothing. Bad. That doesn't mean he isn't really a terrific coach. He's just not the greatest.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I agree with you.
He got one of the two greatest players of all quarterbacks of all time. And now the players that's beginning to come out of are saying that basically, and this is not good for Belichick, but there's a series coming up on Apple on the Patriots and their dynasty. And Danny Amendola, one of the players, said, we played with Belichick, but we played for Brady. That's a hell of an indictment.
Yeah, yeah. And also, too, and maybe you might agree with me on this, but, I would say Belichick's the greatest coach of the 21st century. I mean, you could break it up that way because obviously the rules.
I don't know. I don't know. I think he's really a good coach. That's the other thing that's changed. If you don't know how to deal with today's player,
right,
who is completely different, you can't operate out of fear anymore. They'll tell you to go screw yourself.
Yeah.
The guy I love is the new coach, the rookie coach at Houston, D'Amico Ryans. Oh, I love this guy. He was a former player. He then worked for the 49ers. I was asked today to give my opinion on who was the coach of the year. I said, D'Amico Ryans. And I said, you know who I think is the quarterback of the year? It's C.J. Stroud. Oh, my God. I mean, that guy's got a gun for an arm. He's got great poise. He's got everything. And he's really made that team. I don't root, but I'm rooting for them Saturday.
And that's a franchise that everybody wrote off a couple of years ago with Deshaun Watson and all and everything.
The father who founded it, I didn't care for. He's died. Now the son owns the team. I don't have a lot of time for him either.
Yeah.
But that's what are you going to do? Billionaire row.
Yeah. Well, let me.
I do really like that.
Yeah, Oh, go ahead. I didn't mean to talk over you there.
No, I'm just saying. Look, before we get off, I got to give you my petty peeve of the week.
Okay.
Now, the NFL has slowly but surely going to what I predict will be the future. They first of all took the Thursday night games free off the free network and put it on Amazon. And Amazon paid them millions of dollars for it, and therefore you had to pay for the season for Amazon. I think it's $14. Poor production, everything else like that. It really pissed me off. But now what they've done is, and it's the slow. I can see it now, the ebbing of free TV. So the key game this weekend is going to be Miami and Kansas City, and they're predicting it might be the worst weather we've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
So what the NFL did said, for the first time, we're going to put a playoff game on this Peacock network, and Peacock is now part of NBC. So they tried it 2 weeks before when Buffalo was playing the Chargers out in LA, and they didn't get a lot of views. They didn't get the millions of viewers that they normally get. But I said to myself, screw them. I am not paying to watch that game. But this weekend I'm forced to because the playoff game, and I'm doing a lot of different interviews on it. And I'm saying to myself, I have said this on social media. I said this 2 years ago. I said the day will come when the NFL will charge you to watch the Super Bowl, $25 or something like that per household, and they'll make millions of dollars on it. But slowly but surely, you're going to begin to lose your TV.
Yeah, I agree with you.
But
I agree
see,
with you.
Then, again, Greg, what you have is, like them or not, the old-time owners, they didn't worry about having their picture in the paper or getting on TV. Every game I watch, I've got to see, now let's go up in the box and look and see the owner, blah, blah, blah. They go like, please, spare me from this. But the other part of it is that the only people that can afford to get into the game today are billionaires. Billionaires are bottom line people. And I understand business and I understand bottom line. But they are not sports people. They're not sportsmen or sportswomen. They are business people. And that's how they made their billions. They are business people. I think we're losing some of the real heart out of the game. The old-time owners, I could find a lot of fault with them. But they love the game. They love being part of it. They at least gave some semblance of caring about their players. But they're all gone now. And I understand everything changes. But now you've got bottom line bennies in there that are going to say, well, you know what? If we can get millions of dollars for Peacock this weekend, if we can do this, it's all going to go to streaming video. Believe me, streaming is it.
Oh yeah. I mean, I survived being here in Japan. Without streaming, I would not be able to access, obviously, watching the NFL games. I agree 100% with you. I mean, we have YouTube, and do you have the YouTube Sunday ticket package now?
No, because I tell them to go screw themselves. And pardon my language. No, because I get the red zone. I pay for the red zone, and I do that. I wouldn't. That and I understand because you're in Japan.
Yeah,
but
do you have like when? Oh, but when you watch. Okay, so when you watch the Patriots and football, are you going over the air right now, or you got a cable package?
No, I'm on Xfinity, which is total cable.
Right.
But,
okay.
But I get the free TV.
Yeah.
I mean, I just pay Xfinity for that, so it's really
Okay.
kind of over the air.
Right.
But these other ones, if you want Thursday night football, I mean, I could care less about the Sunday package because of so many lousy teams, and I can watch bits and pieces on the red zone, but I don't get the red zone or the Sunday package through YouTube. So,
Well,
but that's
well, the reason why I brought that up was because over the air TV, even from a technology standpoint, is going to gradually start fading away too. The
sure.
free, the old aerial. I mean, people right now, there's a lot of people that are cutting the cord and going to streaming, but they're also, they still have the rabbit ears and everything. But the technological standards are changing where even that's going to start being phased out. So I agree with you 100%. Everything's going to be pay-per-view. I mean, you're going to have to pay for everything at this point.
So, well, that's right. And now, of course, when people are walking into each other on the street, they can watch movies on their phone. They can watch stuff on their computer. I mean, I you know what? Since the pandemic, I haven't been in the movie theater. Yes, I went once to see Oppenheimer because I want to see it on a big screen.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a 70-inch screen. I can watch all my movies by streaming them.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen a movie other than Oppenheimer in over 3 years. All the good movies, The Life of Leonard Bernstein with Bradley Cooper.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the theater for about 2 weeks, but I can get on Netflix. So, I mean, I'm paying because I don't want to go to a theater, and they know, for instance, on the channel that is going to have the Kansas City Miami game, Peacock, I can get a movie called The Holdovers, and if I went to the movie theater to see it, and it's recommended as an Academy Award nominee, if I go to a theater and I tried that, and by the way, recommend you to see it if you stream it or not, once it leaves the theaters. It tugs at your heartstrings, and it's great to watch, and it's basically a true story. The Boys in the Boat, which is the true story about the 1936 Olympic team from Washington. All these kids poor, had no money, nothing, and the book has won all sorts of awards. It's been out for like 3 or 4 years. Get the book. The movie, you'll love it. It's sappy. It's all those things that you used to root for in the movie theater. You'll love this movie.
What's the name of it again?
But again, The Boys in the Boat.
Okay.
Based upon a true story.
Right.
And the book, well, I mean, is one of the best books I've ever read about sports and about what it's bigger than really a sports story.
Right.
About the Depression. It's like, but again, I don't go to movie theaters. That's the positive part about streaming. Other than sports, is I can watch the movies. My screen is as good as anything, except the theater screen is much bigger, but I really could care less. So we're seeing technology totally change, and I think to myself, 1936, Bert Bell, Philadelphia Eagles, playing the Brooklyn Dodgers, and the start of President at the Creation is really the first TV game that changed football forever.
Yeah. Yeah. And here we are in the 21st century, in the third decade of the 21st century, and we are talking over the internet. And this show, after I finish editing it and splicing everything together, is going to go out over the internet airwaves. It's just amazing how full circle we have come with technology and sports, and it's
Well,
just. And I'm 57, and I'm amazed because I was born when Lombardi was coach of the Packers, and spent most of my life watching TV over the air on an analog TV.
yeah, and that was was a completely different time. I've been lucky enough to see it all, and I turned 86 this year, and I've been able to see it all, absorb it all, remember it all, and continue to tell the story of when it, and be able to compare it to when it was, what it was then and what it is now, and why and how I see, again, the changes. And again, I want to repeat, I think that everything about the game is better. And there are a lot of things that I really like. The things that I don't like are the things that affect the players in the game and the public that has to be careful that they aren't total suckers. I sent out on social media this week, I said, I'm going to get Peacock because I want to watch the game. And then I put at the end of my missive, I said, shame on me. Because I'm contributing and just giving them, if they have a big number,
Yeah.
who the hell knows what happens next year?
Yeah, I'm like you. I just see everything going to streaming. I mean, I'm fortunate enough over here in Japan to have DAZN, and it's a British company, but they've got the NFL international contract now. I don't have to worry about paying money to Peacock for anything like that. But yeah, I'm part of the problem too.
By the way, because they run out of places to go here, you'll live a lot longer than me, but you will see in your lifetime teams in Europe and games. There'll be games in Japan. There'll be games in China. The NFL is going to go international for two reasons. They'll tell you because they want to spread the gospel. That's bullshit. What they have seen is that there's no place to grow anymore in the United States.
Right.
They're in every place, and some of the places stink, like Jacksonville, and you name it. But you will see that. So it's great for people in Europe and Asia because they're going to be able to see it. I don't know how good the game is going to be, but it doesn't make any difference.
Right.
So
right.
That's where you're going to see international games more and more and more.
Well, it's funny you should bring that up because there is a book out there that I read. I had the author on my podcast, I think it was last year, Keegan Dresso. And his book is called Gridiron Cup 1982. And the best thing about this book, and you will appreciate this more than anybody else, is that your dad is the linchpin for, in an alternate history, the gridiron game being the game out surpassing soccer or anything, and establishing basically a gridiron World Cup. I don't know if after you and I wrap up everything, I'll send you the link and everything, but it's a great book. But yeah, I agree with you. The international aspect of they've got to go because there's nowhere else to go.
No, there isn't. And it's interesting too, that in some ways Bert Bell's being rediscovered. There's a guy that I put his letter and his article in. There's a writer by the name of Sam Fortier, a very young guy in his 30s that writes for the Washington Post, that wrote a column just before the Super Bowl last year and said, I've rediscovered Bert Bell. And he put in his column all the genius moves by this guy who smoked too much and with cigarette stains all over his desk. He describes Bert Bell, and then he writes about his genius and what he did. See, I've always maintained that my father could have been successful in anything that he did because of his ability to see so far ahead. And background too is, remember, his father was the Attorney General. His brother was the governor of Pennsylvania and then Chief Justice Supreme Court. That's where I get my knowledge of politics and all the things that go on in this country and worldwide. Is that we would discuss at the table not just football. We discussed politics, arts. My mother. There were so many things that went through my mind that I always felt like I could talk about anything. You could call me and ask about politics. You could ask me about current movies, plays, everything, because unlike today where nobody comes home for dinner, nobody spends any time except on their computers or at home. Their new sex toys is a cell phone. So So I got open to everything, and heard and met people and heard them talk, and I got an education other than my schools, places I went and learned. I got an education every night because we talked about arts, we talked about politics, we talked about music. It wasn't just sports. And here you had two people, my mother, who was a Ziegfeld Folly star, knew people all over the world, traveled as an actress, met Al Capone, Lindbergh. You got that whole side of history. And then my father, whose background in his family, he was the only person that wasn't a lawyer or politician, yet he knew everybody. He knew presidents. In the Harry Truman Presidential Library, Bert Bell's right in the rotunda. A picture of he with Truman in the background. So I am damn lucky because I was able to learn about a lot of things, and particularly about life, what it was like. So as a young kid, I was able to experience all of this, including living in the same house with 33 football players. In fact, I found a check that Bert Bell wrote to a starting offensive center, Bull Lipsky, of like $5 or $6, pay him a week to babysit the Bell boys.
Well, let me ask you, with your dad, when he did the schedule, because he's the one that did the schedule.
Right.
How involved with that were you?
Nothing. I just was like watching Bobby Fischer play chess.
Ah, okay. Because I've seen I think if I remember correctly, there's a picture of your dad with everything lined up and making the schedule.
Yeah,
so I was just.
Actually, he used dominoes and had a board there and moved them all around. My brother, had the exclusive rights to it, but Bert Bell was the one who coined the phrase "on every given Sunday." They say it I hear it every week. They just don't remember who said it. And finally, Peter King asked the author of my father's book on any given Sunday, Bob Lyons of the Associated Press. He said, "I thought Pete Rozelle said that." And he said, Bob Lyons said, "No, it was Bert Bell who coined the phrase after making up the schedule, because the way he made it up was to make sure that the weak played the weak and the strong played the strong. And by the middle of the season, everybody was still in the race." So that's another thing that he did. And it's watching him. He would come home from the office and then begin working on that. He did everything. He was the commissioner that did everything.
And if your dad would have lived into the 60s and gone with the league into the 60s, do you think that the AFL, at what point do you think he would have tried to come to peace with the AFL sooner rather than as further down the road as it was? What's your take? I mean, just looking back at it, what do you think?
Well, if people got the book on any given Sunday written like Bob Lyons, there's a whole section in there. His former quarterback, Davey O'Brien, who he drafted, Heisman Trophy winner from TCU, ended up being after he left my father's team, retired early, and went with the FBI and became the best pistol shot in America. And he was the go-between between Lamar Hunt and my father that year that the that my father died, and actually, and then the AFL started up in 1960, and asked my father if he would be interested in being commissioner of both leagues. There's a whole section in there on that, and my father finally, there was a secret meeting set up with him and Lamar Hunt, and then Hunt had asked him if he would be commissioner of both leagues, and he said no. But he said, "I'll tell you what I want to do. I'm going to Congress," because that's another first. My father was the first-time lobbyist of any sport, and he registered as a full-time lobbyist. He used to go to Washington every Monday or so and meet with Congress. And he got Hunt to give him permission to announce that there would be a new league and that the NFL fully backed it. So I think if he had lived, there probably would have been peace and some down the line merger, although Hallis was against it. But the other thing that most people didn't know, and it's in his book and mine, is that Bert Bell had secretly decided that at the end of the 1959 season he would resign as commissioner. He had made a secret deal with the Philadelphia National Bank to buy his old team, the Eagles, for $950,000. But none of us knew it until 3 days after his death, when the bank called and said we didn't know anything about it, that we're sorry we can't complete the deal. And we said, what the hell was the deal? And they explained it. So if he lived 3 more days, you could be in my box at the Eagles.
Oh man,
but that's the irony of life, you know.
That is.
So anyway, I think we've done it all tonight, or at least
we've done it all tonight. So for those who are on social media, the best way to find Upton is on Twitter at Upton Bell. And the great thing about Upton's Twitter account is he talks about everything, not just sports, politics, whether you agree with him or not. I always love Upton's hot takes on politics. And Upton,
the other thing I want to add, if I've got 2 big websites, one that has the whole history of college and pro football from the 1890s to today, and that's the Upton Bell Collection at UMass Amherst. If they go online, they can see it and go into all the different categories, and it has my Super Bowl ring, and it has all sorts of stuff in there, including a gold football from George Hallis to me when he won the championship in 1946. There's stuff that I've been offered hundreds of thousands of dollars for that is in that case and in that collection, along with the history of the Bell and Francis Upton family. So please go online and take a look at it. If you're in the area at all, go see it at UMass. It's an amazing collection.
I will add the link to our show liner notes when this podcast comes out. So and I'll be spending quality time with it today here on my side of the world, looking at everything that's on there. And anything else? Any other places? I mean, you mentioned you got the Upton Bell collection.
Well, there's another collection of 500 of the authors that I've interviewed, with each one of their books inscribed and the history of them. And we have like 4 Nobel Prize winners and over 30 Pulitzer Prize winners. It's one of the largest collections anywhere. And it'll eventually have interviews that I've done, not on sports, but with these authors. And you can get that by going online at UMass Lowell, although that hasn't been finished yet. But you can still go on and look at some of them. There's still 300 more to go up there. So I also will be featured in the New York Times, I think, at the end of this week on the real story of the Patriots.
Oh, really?
Then and the Patriots now. Yeah, it'll be. In fact, the author or the writer for the New York Times, and it'll be in the business section, is Ken Belson, who lived in Japan and wrote on Japan and business back about 30 or 40 years ago. He's an interesting guy.
Okay. Well, I'll be hounding you via text probably saying, "Hey, is the link out yet? Is the link out yet?" Because you just love, I'm sure, my text at 1 a.m. when you're trying to sleep. And,
No problem.
well, on that note, my friend, you stay put here because I want to talk to you before we hang up the phone. But at least with the show here, for everybody who's listening, thank you. First of all, thank you very much for listening. And please stay tuned for part 2 of the podcast where Dave Selinsky and I will be sitting down with Fran Stuckberry to talk about Fran is from our Sports Central. Our Sports Central. My apologies. I only had 1 cup of coffee here today, but we're going to be talking more minor league. We're going to be talking this week in the minor leagues. We're going to be talking United Football League press coverage, and I'm sure a whole lot more with Fran. So, for everybody listening, thank you very much for spending time with Upton and I this morning and this evening, depending upon where you are in the world. It's evening there in Boston. It's morning time here in Japan, and we'll be talking to you very soon, and hopefully, Upton, we can have you back on here. I want to.
Well,
I love spending time with you.
I want to say to your audience, sayonara.
Domo arigato. Thank you very much, Upton, and for everybody, please stay tuned, and we'll be talking to you soon. Bye bye.
This is Johnny Unitas of the Baltimore Colts. Let's go, you Colts.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to part 2 from the 55 this week. And I am sitting here with Fran and Dave. And this part of the show, I want to talk, I spent a good long time talking with Upton, the first part of the show. I haven't edited it quite down yet as we're talking right now, but it was a long talk. So if you haven't listened to my interview with Upton, please do, because Upton Bell is a living legend in sports. And as I was telling both Fran and Dave here before we hit the record button, Upton Bell is he's a living link to the past. So it was a pleasure to talk to him. Him and I are friends, so it was great catching up with him. But unfortunately, as I mentioned before we hit the record button, there was one question of Upton I did not ask, and that was about his relationship with Howard Cosell. So hopefully I'll be able to get that in a future episode with Upton, because as you hopefully have heard, Upton sounds pretty good for a guy of his age. So hopefully
How old you know?
he's 87 years old.
God bless him.
Yeah. So, well, Fran, thank you very much for joining us again. Dave, you're up there. You guys both right now are where the weather really sucks or is going to suck soon. And I'm sitting here and it's like going to be like close to 60 and sunny today. So my apologies for that. But Fran, you guys had storms roll through Raleigh and everything this past week. How did that? How bad was it?
Well, my security job, the school closed early at 5 o'clock, so I was able to get home and still get paid that day. And my second job, a Coca booth, I wasn't scheduled to work this week, but they had to end the last week of the Chinese Lantern Festival because the lanterns got destroyed with that weather. That cost them tons of money, because everyone usually toward the end, if you have a ticket for that event, you're going to go. So they lost tons of money because of the storm damage. But no, I mean, I didn't lose any power or any flooding, so.
Okay. Well, that's the key right there, flooding. Dave, how about you, man? You guys got the shovels at the ready now?
Yeah, they're at the ready. We're probably looking more Saturday into Sunday. It's just like 65-mile-an-hour winds right now. So we have a couple events going on here at the facility. So I had to come in and just make sure with some campers and some pickleball and make sure everything's going well. So I had to hop in tonight. So
gotcha.
Well, the job.
When I got up this morning, I was tuning into the news from Chicago, and it was, I mean, the snow looks bad, but all I kept thinking is, oh yeah, no, I'll take that snow over what's coming in after it, because it's going to be that Arctic blast is coming in.
It's going to be cold.
Yeah. And obviously, we're recording today too, because I wanted to get this in before the playoffs started, and we got the playoffs coming up here, and I wanted to sit down with you guys without any distraction, because that first game up, I think the first game up, Fran, the first game up is, if I remember from my phone correctly, that's the Kansas City Miami game, right?
Well, actually, the 4:30 game, the Browns and Houston.
Okay.
And then the Miami game is the Peacock game. Well, that'll be an interesting discussion. Well, the first stream playoff game in NFL history. So that'll be.
Well, let's talk. Let's use that as our jumping off point. So, what's your take on both your guys' take on NFL going to Peacock?
A little petty, because I kind of feel like I mean, you can be over the network, and it's not really necessary. But at the same point, it's only like $5, and if you spend $5, you can use for other streaming services. And people, they just got Peacock. I'll recommend one movie for it. Get The Holdovers with Paul Giamatti. It's a great movie. You'll definitely recommend that. But in general, it's people are complaining because they don't want to pay, but those people may have no money. So we'll see.
How about you, Dave?
They paid a lot of money, and the NFL is going to take it, and I'll watch it because I have it.
Well, is it a coincidence they picked the game with Taylor Swift that has an impact on that? So maybe all those music fans for Taylor Swift are going to get Peacock just to watch a glimpse of her TV.
You know what? It's about money, and they're gonna follow the money every time. And if someone wants to pay it, all 32 owners are going to gladly take it.
Well, how about this, Greg? Do you think ever in our lifetime there'll ever be a Super Bowl just on a streaming service?
It's yes and no. Yes and no. Because here's why. Here's why I say yes. It's going to happen because it's on a streaming service already. DAZN is the international provider for the NFL for all the games. So over here in Japan, I don't have the NFL Sunday Ticket. I have the NFL Game Pass, which gets me every game live. It gets me every game live, including past game. I mean, it's a full service, and I pay less money than what you guys would pay for the NFL Sunday Ticket on YouTube. So it's already streaming internationally. Now, in the States, a couple things factor in here. It's over-the-air TV. And with over-the-air TV, Everything's obviously digital now, but the standards are changing for over-the-air TV. But until over-the-air TV goes away, I can't see the NFL going away from antenna TV for the Super Bowl, at least in our lifetime. That's my take.
Well, Greg, wouldn't it kill sponsorships? Why would a Super Bowl spend a fortune on commercials if people didn't have as much access to it? Why would a sponsor want to be on Super Bowl if it's on a streaming service? I wouldn't.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, I agree with you. Yeah, that's a great argument. But we're at a point now with I mean, cable's dying.
Cord cutters.
You got cord cutters, cable's dying. Over-the-air TV is going to be the way people watch sports. Live sports, at least for the foreseeable future. But streaming, that's only if you're in an area that can get that. I know, you guys are in major metropolitan areas, but you go further out. Like I grew up south of Chicago, so we were dependent upon that antenna feed from Chicago. But you go even farther. I mean, you get some areas you don't have. It's hard to get a signal over the air, and with digital TV, it's not like analog TV in the past. Remember analog TV? You could get a fuzzy signal, but you could still watch a game. Not with digital. You got to have a strong signal. And if you don't have a strong signal, you got to get an antenna booster. I could get all geeky and because I tried all this when I was living in Chicago with using a powered antenna booster, but like for just a regular guy, it's not very tech savvy. It's either going to be over the air or streaming. But to go to what you're saying, Fran, I think you're going to see the Super Bowl go to streaming solely, but we're going to all be dead by then.
Greg,
I don't see antenna TV going away.
Greg, before we change topics, let's talk about our favorite USFL league that had a couple of games on Peacock that you actually invested to watch. Remember they had a couple of Peacock-only games that some people complained about on social media that they didn't want to pay $5 to watch a handful of games. Give me a break. Just chip in and get it.
Well, okay, so let's talk about Peacock. So I'm glad NBC is not part of this league this year, because it looks to me, just based upon what I'm seeing, and Dave, I don't know if you've taken a look too, is ESPN Plus is going to be again providing simulcast streaming feeds. Is that that's the way it appears to me? If I'm
for the playoffs,
right? No, for the UFL.
Oh yes, for the UFL. Yeah, that'd be, at the end of the day, that looks like that's the partnership, and that's the smart play. Having it on Fox, ESPN Plus, or possibly an ABC here and there, I think that's the right way to go. That's where the money is. That's where the money is coming from. That's the most solid support. And if NBC wants to go in a different direction, that's perfectly fine. As long as they're on a network, I think that's the key. Being on over-the-air television, that's the key.
Greg, I will make one prediction. The weakest ratings that we're going to get with these UFL games, guess what? It's going to be Fox Sports 1. That's going to be the weakest rating.
Yeah.
They're going to be buried, and fans are going to be crying, because Fox Sports 1 doesn't have the penetration. And plus, people just, Fox Sports 1, you can't get that on Sports 4. People are not, when you go to Sports 4, it's not going to be on those games. So,
well, it's like with ESPN Plus. If you got to go, the numbers I'm sure weren't great for ESPN Plus for streaming because you had to go look for the game. It's not like, you're at home turning on your TV and just channel surfing. If you're channel surfing, yeah, obviously you're going to find, a game on, and I'm talking Chicago speak here, either channel 2, 5, or 7, it's going to pop up. But if the game's on FS1 and you got to go look for it, you're a diehard fan then if you know where to find it.
Well, on my Spectrum, it's channel 400, so not everybody's gonna go that high in their channel guide to find it.
Yeah. It's cable's dying, and streaming, like you said. Streaming is the way that the future is going. But I think the future is going to be streamed and simulcast all at the same time for a while.
Look at the NFL playoffs. the games are on NBC and Peacock, and then you have Paramount Plus, CBS and Paramount Plus. I mean, they're all pairing up. They're all partnering with their streaming partner. I mean, that's how it's going to be. I mean, it's just you have the people who have over the air, and then you have the people who are streaming, and you're going to hit that niche, and you're going to make sure you get enough of those deals, and you get what you need, and you're going to find it, and if you want to watch the NFL, you're going to have to support 4 streaming services at the end of the day, or 3, depending on who and what you want to watch. It's just it's like the old cable. You got 157 channels. Now you only have 40 channels, but you're paying for the 40 you want, which is everything we wanted. But now we're realizing, well, maybe it wasn't as good of a deal as getting 150 channels.
So what about people that have question for people that have kids? What do you guys think about the Nickelodeon game? I think it's both to be on the show. What do you think about Nickelodeon, that slime stuff? Is it fun, or is it going to get people to watch? Are people going to care? Does it really cater towards those families?
Here's my take, Fran. If you can get kids to watch football, you're basically recruiting a new fan, because having it on Nickelodeon and the way they did it is genius.
SpongeBob. Because everybody loves SpongeBob.
Because you're attracting kids to a game that they might not otherwise watch. And that's how the NFL has survived all these years. It would be nice if baseball started doing that, because baseball fan base is getting older. CFL, same way. They're not attracting new fans, but the NFL knows how to attract new fans. And I don't know if it's because of NFL films or whatever, but they've always been able to figure out how to keep the fan base young. So Greg,
I'll give you a perfect example. If the game's not entertaining, I'll flip it over and watch it on Nickelodeon and just watch the slime. And if the game's entertaining, then I'll watch it over on the network. But if it's out of hand, woo, slime, and if you see young Sheldon nonsense, rule explanations, that's more entertaining. A blowout game will still keep me awake.
Yeah. And is there only? Oh, go ahead, Dave. I'm sorry.
Well, and that's the fun part about this is they're not expecting diehard football fans to watch this. That's not the point. I mean, That's why you see the Manning cast, and you see 3 different, you'll see the experimentation where they have the main football feed, and then you have people sitting around a table talking about the game, because they know people who want football are going to watch that main game. And now it's everybody else. Is you know what? Maybe a dad and his kids, or his sons and his daughters, you know what? We're going to give a half to Nickelodeon, because now this is going to be something fun. And then that's how you build a bond for Sundays watching it as a family. So, I mean, I think it's great. And Nickelodeon's paying for it. It's one of those things where it's like, you know what? The NFL wouldn't be doing it, or any of these leagues or teams wouldn't be doing it, unless it made financial sense and it made viewership sense. And then that sells sponsorship. I mean, that's what this whole thing's all about. It's about generating, at the end of the day, these games are about generating revenue.
Well, look what Pat McAfee's doing with college football. His own, he has his own audience, and he's just doing his rambling on and on. But people are watching to hear what he has to say, like the Howard Stern effect. You don't know what he's going to say or shoot off, and he's having, he's going on, always having tirades. You never know. Yep.
Yeah, and the whole I won't even get into the Aaron Rodgers thing, but the whole Aaron Rodgers thing, I'm curious how that's going to play out next year. Because, with Pat McAfee, Aaron made a comment about one of ABC's.
Done. He won't be back.
Oh, he's not? Because I thought I heard something.
He's not.
I heard something. He's coming back on. I heard at least I thought I heard they flip-flopped. But he's done.
Last I heard, he was done.
Okay.
And unfortunately, Greg, I'm sorry for a Jets fan. I'm still not optimistic about this Jets season next year. So unless he gets some high-profile wide receiver, I'm gonna be living on red zone.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, Aaron Rodgers. I don't know. I mean, now that he's he's gone from the Packers, but all the Packers did was just reload. I mean, the Packers didn't really lose a step without him. I mean, maybe a little bit, but the Jordan Love, who they got to replace him, I think, is a quality replacement. So I don't know.
And they saved a ton of money from paying him and put that towards other players.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's what every team does. If you save $40 million here, they're going to spend it on 4 players. Or
That's going to
five.
buy you. That's going to buy you a new line, and you got a young kid at quarterback. You basically paying the same.
Yeah, he's got a team friendly contract. They just saved $40 million or whatever. I forgot whatever that last year was. It might have been $50 million. Now you know what? Hey, now they found a couple receivers for Jordan Love. And they found a running back, and look, a left tackle that can block. Like, it's shocking when you have extra $50 million that, hey, we can put people around you. Yeah. And that's what made Tom Brady. So, love him or hate him, growing up an AFC East Bills fan, gotta respect the guy. He always took the low amount of money. He wanted a team around him because he wanted to win. Winning was more important than getting paid for it. He wanted to win.
Well, speaking of the Patriots, Belichick era is over finally.
And look at the dumb hire they added. Come on. A guy already there? Come on, give me a break. Boring.
Wait, so did they replace him?
Jeremiah, yeah.
Whoa, because I'm out of the news loop over here. So they replaced Belichick with somebody else? They found somebody else?
Yeah, the linebacker coach in their system. Boring.
Well, I think
familiarity. Well, here's the thing: if they actually draft a good, if one of these quarterbacks turns out to be a star, they'll be fine. I think it's going to be the LSU quarterback. They're going to get the 3rd pick. We'll see. But if they get a decent quarterback, then they might get back. We'll see.
Yeah, Dave, I know as a Bills fan, you're not crying about Belichick leaving.
Nope.
And I know, Fran, as a Jets fan, you're not crying.
Yeah, the 1-day job. Get the hell out of here. You can go. Hasta la vista, baby. You was the Jets coach 1 day. Get the hell out of here. Oh.
Well, I don't know. And then he got Saban leaving to Alabama, which, again, I don't think anybody's, even Saban's not crying because I think he's laughing all the way to the bank. So all of them are. That's the thing with these coaches now. They leave. Well, they're low. I mean, why? They never have to work again the rest of their life.
Greg, guess what? Belichick will probably be a coach next year on another team. Some team's going to pick him up.
I can see that.
I mean, maybe the Eagles, if they lose this week, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Some teams are going to pick them up, or the Falcons. Those guys want to waste money. Go ahead. That'll be fun.
With Belichick leaving and Saban retiring here, Pete Carroll's getting no attention. Be basically run out of town.
Yeah. But Pete's 72, Belichick's 70. Listen, I was forced to retire when I was age 55. So it's like I'm sitting here going, yeah, I don't know. If I were their age, I'd be like, okay, it's time to just to be done and just enjoy, life. So I don't know. I'd be curious to see where they go in the future and obviously who replaces them. So, well, gents, the next item I want to talk about is, and Fran, this is really directed to you. Your latest column with our Sports Central came out, and let's talk indoor football. Yep. And when I say indoor football, I mean all the indoor leagues.
Okay.
We're going. Obviously, we're in January right now, and I looked on the American Football League, Arena Football League website. I still don't see teams listed, and I know there are teams I've seen on social media. What's going on with the new AFL? Is it going to actually happen, or is this going to turn out to be vaporware like so many other indoor leagues that have, or other even outdoor leagues that have come up and just never happened?
Well, it's very, 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 very vague unless you read some blogger that thinks he knows everything. I don't know a damn thing about this. Like, there's no press releases, there's no nothing. Schedules, nothing. It's all smoke and mirrors. Somebody spread a rumor that the games are gonna be on the NFL Network. I'll see it, but no, how the NFL touches that.
And what about? Obviously, everybody's like gaga over this Arena Football League coming back, but there's another indoor league, the Indoor Football League, which has been around for years. Where are they? What for those who don't know anything about the Indoor Football League, tell describe what the Indoor Football League is and how it came to be and kind of where it's at right now. I mean, I know you've gone to, I mean, you've traveled all over and watched sports of all kinds. So, how is the Indoor Football League different from the Arena Football League?
It's more of a running league. Runs a little bit more emphasis. And also, I mean, as you know, they had a relationship with the XFL last year when they had combine with some of those
Right.
IFL players signed with XFL team. I don't know. I wonder if that relationship's going to continue. We shall see.
Okay.
With UFL.
And obviously, there's other indoor football leagues too. I think Champions Indoor Football League.
Well, that's gone. That's gone. That's gone.
Oh,
because
it's gone. Okay.
Refa will absorb that.
Okay.
National Arena League. That's the one with Carolina and the Midwest and the rest of the Midwest teams. AIF is vaporwave joke. No, I wouldn't touch that league either. But those people think they're know-it-alls. But no thanks.
Well, with these indoor leagues, what is it about the indoor game that that causes all these leagues to keep cropping up or hanging around for so long? Is there money? I mean, are people making money in these indoor leagues?
It's like a cockroach that never wants to die. That's what it seems like.
Okay.
But it's just, I mean, it seems like people. I mean, in the past, in the heydays of arena football, it was a badge of honor when you had that city commitment and everything else. But after a while, people are going to get tired of losing money. We saw what happened in arena football. Charles Whiting, Casey Wasserman. People will eventually, Gene Simmons with the LA Kiss. If you lose money, eventually you're going to stop. You can't just keep on losing money forever and ever and ever. I don't care how cool it is or what family member. Eventually, it runs dry and people are going to fold. So
is it more like a vanity project for people? Just, hey, this would be cool to own a football team, and they don't realize how much money they're going to lose, and then they just say they just have. Is that what it is? Are people not doing their research as to what ownership? And it's like buying a new, it's like adopting a new pet. Oh, it'd be great and everything. And then you get the new pet at home and realize, oh, this is a lifetime commitment.
It's really a joke when you have a team that folds during the season. That's the embarrassment. If you're a league, fund the team till the end of the season. Otherwise, it's a joke. You just please save face by. But these teams don't want. These leagues don't want to spend money. The other dumb thing is these leagues should have money put up front. Yeah, so in case you run out of money, you get funded for the rest of the season. That's just my take.
Okay. And then I know going through social medias before we hopped on and everything, the Iowa Rampage. Tell people about the Iowa Rampage and what's going on with them. And the floor is yours, my friend, on this one, because I just caught it. I caught it, and I'm like, okay, I'll wait to talk to Fran, and he'll explain it to me.
Well, the team hasn't played one down all season long. You had a coach that basically, I was talking to Paul Reese from R Sports Central, and he was telling me this coach was defending the Arena Football League left and right. This is great, blah, 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 blah. And guess what? He's already fired. What is going on? I have no idea. What a joke. Why hire him in the first place? And the other thing is, on Facebook, why not put up on a website? You have a screenshot of a press release. What a joke. That nobody can read.
And when it comes to the Arena Football League, I mean, you got, like I said, the only team I know of are the Iowa Rampage. I think we got the Chicago Rush coming in
eventually.
So, I mean, from what I looked on the website, there are no teams listed. So honestly, I mean, I'd have to go research which teams have been announced, but do you think, I'm going to be honest, I'll ask you your opinion. Do you think do you think it's going to launch when it's scheduled to launch?
It will launch, but it'll get through the season. Honestly, I'll make a prediction already. I already think we already know who's going to win the championship this year. And you want to know who that is? The Orlando Predators. Because they have a history of they've had a league forever with the Arena Football League, National Arena League. They seem to know what they're doing with this team. And the thing is, the fan base still will follow. They'll get 7,000 fans, even if it's crap, because they love going to games. So I'll make a prediction. Orlando's going to win. We still don't even know the Minnesota Myth. That's funny about this league. This league is a myth. Ricky Foggy is the coach. We don't even know what arena they're playing in yet. So how can you sell tickets to games when you don't have an arena announced? Philadelphia Soul. Some people say they're a travel team. Then the Soul fans claim they're going to get a market. Why have a team in the league that's on the road? It makes no sense. Okay, that's so.
Okay. And changing gears slightly here, our Sports Central covers women's soccer. What's going on with the professional game, the women's professional game? If I'm reading the headlines right, it sounds things are positive.
It's getting better because this National Women's Soccer League, they have 4 TV networks now, with the TV deals with ESPN, CBS, Scripps, and Ion. So they have Amazon Prime, but they have four games. They have expansion in Utah and at Bay FC. I cover North Carolina Courage, and those games are awesome. So I live like 15 minutes from there. I have a women's soccer league in my backyard where I get to have fun and enjoy the games. And they're having an NWSL draft tonight that they're having on TV, and they're doing well. I mean, the quality of play is good. And then we have another league that's going to launch in August, the USL Super League, which is going to be they're not going to be competing with the league, but they're going to be at different times. That's going to be a league that that people are going to be. These women's fans are going to support both leagues because they're not competitors. So I'm probably going to go to a game in Charlotte in August for the home opener just to check it out. But women's soccer is fun to watch. It's exciting. It's fun to watch compared to the men's side with these other leagues. It's a more finesse product. So.
And are people turning out to the games?
Well, over the network, they are. I mean,
No, I mean just like, well, not only ratings but also attendance wise. Butts and seats.
well, Portland loves their team. So and this new and watch out for this Kansas City with that brand spanking arena. Everything they already sold out the place. San Diego loves it. So they have a lot of hot markets. It seems like one of the weakest markets, unfortunately, is North Carolina Courage because it's the thing is they got to spend more money to get more better players, to get more fans into it. Because a couple years ago when they won championships, they were getting 10,000 fans a game. So we'll see what happens. But I mean, some of the markets, they do well. But the thing is, the problem is you have to spend money and get players and you also have to win. If you win, you'll do well. So that's how it works.
Right. And also too with women's hockey, pro hockey, that's trending upward as I like to say. And with the league, it's the North American Hockey League, correct?
The professional women's hockey leagues. Are you talking about women's hockey?
The professional women's hockey league. It's
this.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong thing on the screen here. I'm looking at the Western. Well, we've got the Western Hockey League.
Those juniors. Yep.
Those are juniors. Okay, my apologies. I'm sorry.
Yep.
I've only had one cup of
Professional
coffee
Women's
this
Hockey
morning.
League, PWHL.
Okay.
Well, Dave is the expert. We'll let the expert of women's hockey, the guru. Everybody's going to tune in this week to hear his expert because he knows his sport better than anyone. Dave, the forum's all yours.
It's exciting. I mean, I've been watching the games. They're on their YouTube, so it's easy to get. Anybody can get them. They're getting 14, 15, 16, 18,000 people watching them. They're filling arenas. Was it Minnesota broke another record? They had an awesome crowd. Like I said, the games are exciting. I mean, I have nieces and I like watching them play hockey. I like the Olympics. I like women's hockey, period. It's great. I'll be honest. This is hopefully it succeeds. The games are well, the support as well. It seems like every day the league is announcing another sponsor. I mean, obviously Canada has certainly embraced it, but it's getting good crowds and getting good. It's good in market penetration where the teams are in the United States as well. So I'm not being naive that it's going to rival anything, but I think after a few weeks, it's got a place in the marketplace and hopefully continues to thrive. I mean, it's just. There's been fun games. I have to say, if you get a chance, look the highlight packages, jump on YouTube, watch the game. It's fun. I mean, okay. I love the idea. Now, this is one of the rules they're using. I love the idea that if you score a shorthanded goal, penalty's over. I like it. It's making teams stretch the ice. It's making the defense not just sit in the shell. It's a push a little bit. And it's fun. I like that new rule. It's like, never really thought about it. You know what? Pretty cool.
Well, Dave, here's my one critique. Maybe Greg can chime in. I'm disappointed they don't have the nicknames out. I mean, they had enough of a layover to do that. I mean, maybe do you know why they didn't? I mean, they're going to do it next year, but they should have had nicknames in place for branding purposes. It would even bring more people. Or they really want to make sure they get the right branding in place to hit it out of the park.
Honestly, I don't. I don't know. For me, those old name the team contests and all that stuff, I've been a part enough of those.
They're rigged.
If they want to be part of Montreal or New York and then work into a name and build something with the community to even a stronger bond, I'm good. I mean, if they were the, I don't know, I'm trying to think of the Montreal whatevers. I don't know. I guess for me the whole nickname thing for these teams is not a big deal for me. I like the concentration. They've been talking to some of the general managers on shuffling the organizations because of international games and making sure they're getting cohesiveness on the teams. So if they don't have a name for it, I'm perfectly fine with it. It for me, it doesn't take anything away from what they're putting on the ice or the product they're putting on YouTube or whatever.
Right. And also too, I mean, in English football, you know, they don't have really they've got nicknames, but you know, when it comes to Liverpool, I'm rooting for Liverpool, not the nickname. And off the top of my head, I couldn't even tell you what Liverpool's nickname is, or Arsenal, or all those. So, I mean, it's not unheard of.
Here's one thing for these games, the playoff games. I want the championship game on national TV on cable. I want it where people can actually be on TV where they can watch it or record it. Don't have it on YouTube. Don't bury it. Please get it on a network where fans can actually watch the game. And then if I'm out, I can tape it and get my gist when I get home.
But Fran, at this point in time, the only way they're going to be on network TV is to buy a 2-3 hour block. And that doesn't work for their financial model.
Nope. Arena football do that, and they got buried.
I think they have a great concept. They have a great idea, and what they're going to do is, instead of paying like Vince McMahon did to be on NBC or be a partner and actually put money into this, you know what? We're going to put our games on YouTube. We're selling a ton of tickets. We're getting a lot of publicity. You know what? Let's throw on, and the numbers are great. 18,000 people watching a professional women's hockey game on a Tuesday night.
Yeah.
Well, that's impressive.
To me, that's great. Now, granted, that rating on, obviously they're not going to be on NBC or CBS, but what's going to be that rating if they paid $400,000 to be on W or Bravo or anything? Like, I mean, I guess, and then we're limiting ourselves. We're limiting on how many people have access to ESPN2. Now you're taking all these young girls out of the equation because now they have to go find somewhere. Now they have to have a subscription. It's like all these young girls and all these kids and all their target audience knows YouTube better than anybody.
Yeah. All you got to do is just click and look. And again, and everybody's watching on their phone too.
Yeah. And
everywhere.
And the stream is amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, it is crystal clear, no issue. So there's money being spent.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know what? That's good. That's good. That's going to grow them faster than having an ad be placed on a broadcast and get XFL numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And plus, you can stream it on your Apple TV, so you can actually get a YouTube feed, but it'll be watching it on TV. So
yeah.
I don't know other leagues.
Yeah, YouTube is, you and I, we've all had this discussion before, but YouTube is the UHF channel for the world. It's got everything, and all you got to do, I mean, listen, without YouTube, I think I'd be going insane here in Japan, because that's how I get my nightly news. All my news from America, I get it off of YouTube. And hey guys, before we wrap everything up here, because I want to do this longer, but unfortunately, I got a handyman here at the house, so we won't stay on the line too long. But Frant, what else is going on in the world of sports that you covered last week and that you're going to be writing about this week?
Well, this week the NWSL draft. We have that, and also what happened with NWSL. We have the Old Reign. They finally rebranded as Seattle Reign, and now we have that Mississippi team in that Southern League. Now they're Columbus, Georgia. That's a baseball. The Braves want to be close to the home, so they want to save money. So the thing is, I love about the week around the leagues. Sometimes things come out of nowhere. And also tomorrow morning I'm going to interview the Pro Volleyball Federation founder Dave Wyndham, who, if you guys know him in Arena Football days, he's a long time involved as a coach of Arena Football. So I'm going to actually talk about the 7 teams, about the team, about their TV partners, and see if pro women's volleyball can make it. Dave, what do you think? Can it make it?
Sure. I think I'm looking forward to it. I'm definitely going to watch it.
Yeah.
I'm here. This is my opinion on all this. I'm in favor of every single sporting event or sports league that can pay athletes, create jobs for people in the offices, and sustain people to live. I think it's great. I've said it before. I worked 20 years in professional sports. It was an amazing 20-year run. And I would like everybody. I mean, the pay's not the great, but I didn't do it for the pay. So if you can get these teams and leagues and they can sustain themselves, do it. I love it.
Well, in a couple of weeks, I'm flying to Atlanta, and I'm going to see the Atlanta Vibe a home opener against the San Diego Mojo. I'm hoping Carrie Walsh Jennings is there, the co-owner of San Diego. She's an Olympian. I'm like, yep. When I talk to Dave, I'm like, please let me get her as a guest, because that's instant credibility to have her involved all she's done in sports. And like I say, hopefully Dave can open up more doors for me to get more access to some of these volleyball players. And it'll be fun. I'm looking forward just to having something fun. They're going to be on CBS Sports Network. They'll be on some of the streaming services, and it's going to be just a fun team. I mean, I'm hoping there's going to be a team in the Carolinas eventually that I can go to and support. We'll see.
Yeah. We got pro volleyball here in Japan, and it's actually on network TV. So occasionally you can stumble on games. So it's taken off.
Pro volleyball in Europe is huge.
Yeah.
And they give you making a decent living between $60,000 and $100,000. That's not bad for women's volleyball. The rosters are going to be around 11 players. But hey, man, if you can, come on, how many kids can make that much money playing a professional sport? Not that much, WNBA players have struggles getting amounts like that. So,
right.
By all means, I'll be very interested to talk to Dave, get his vision, and let's just see how this league goes over the next couple of years. Yep.
Yeah. Well, guys, on that note, I don't know if you can hear it on my end, but I got hammering going on here. So we will end the show here. And for everybody who is listening, Fran, where can everybody find you and all your work at online?
rsportscentral.com. I don't need any random guys friend requesting me on Facebook. No thanks.
Okay. And with Dave and I here at From the 55, you can find, and actually, if you got any questions for Fran or anything, you can go to our Twitter account, message us at From the 55, and we'll pass that along to Fran, and hopefully answer any questions on air the next time around. So,
well, Greg, one thing I'd love to do to make the show even more fun is answer fan questions. We would have so much fun with that. So I don't know how it's worked in past shows. If we get questions, that'll make the fans even more involved. And we'll mention the names, because if a fan hears their name mentioned, they're going to share with all their friends. You know how it works.
Right. Yep. Exactly.
People love anyone. As we go on Facebook, if you mention someone's name, they're like passing out like a Gaga rock star. Come on, you know how it works, and we know who these people are. Yep.
Yeah. No, I know.
You mentioned the name, like, and they're like, oh, wow, I'm so popular on a world that nobody cares about. Look, if we mention Los Mysterio's name, he's going to be like, oh, I'm the god now. Everybody knows who I am. I go on forums and fight with fans that mean absolutely nothing.
Oh, come on! Everybody knows who Los Mysterios.
Oh, the most passionate fan. I mean, I even question him on Facebook. Why don't you just create a website and voice your opinions there? And it says spamming every group and getting into arguments with people on Facebook that casual acquaintances mean absolutely nothing in the real world. But he liked the comment. Okay, well, he didn't block me, so who cares?
Well, I'm unfortunately I can't see his comments anymore because, well, he blocked me. So, and on that note, I will wrap the show up here. Thank you very much for listening, and we will be talking again with you next week. Bye-bye.
Miami has the Dolphins, the greatest football team. We take the ball from goal to goal like no one's ever seen. We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. And when you say Miami, you're talking Super Bowl, 'cause we're the Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins #1. Yes, we're the Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins #1. Miami has the Dolphins, the greatest football team. We take the ball from goal to goal like no one's ever seen. We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. And when you say Miami, you're talking Super Bowl, 'cause we're the Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins #1. Yes, we're the Miami